everyone, today I will be going through this chapter called Excretion in Humans. This chapter is actually quite short comparatively, and it is actually simple, but a lot of students tend to be very confused in this chapter. So I will be trying my best to make it as simple as possible. So to start off with this chapter, okay, we have three main organs involved, okay? So we have our lungs, kidneys, and livers, alright? Starting off from the lungs, okay? Lungs is the most simplest organ in this chapter. So the purpose of the lungs is basically to excrete carbon dioxide. One thing to remember is that carbon dioxide is a waste product. So any sort of waste product is not supposed to be in our body in an excessive amount, okay? It is toxic to human, so excessive amount of carbon dioxide will harm us. That's why it has to be excreted, and lungs are the ones that excrete carbon dioxide, which makes them an excretory organ. Alright, so the next is the kidneys. Okay, so the kidneys is basically the main organ of this chapter, okay, and it is the organ that produces urine. Alright, so kidneys excrete urea, excess water, and ions from the body through urine. Okay, so over here they've mentioned urea, excess water, and ions. These all of these is basically the composition of urine. This is what urine has inside of it, okay? This is what urine is made of, okay? Now let's look into some diagrams. I have 3 diagrams over here, which are all important, by the way. So you have to know how to label these, and you need to know what is the name of each of these organs, okay? So starting off first is kidneys. Kidneys look like beans. That is very obvious. And then we have ureter, your bladder, and then you have your urethra, okay? So a lot of people get confused between ureter and urethra. So I feel like their pronouncing is quite different, but still some people tend to be confused with it. So ureter, okay, transports urine from the kidneys to your bladder, okay? That is the purpose of ureter. And then your urethra transports urine from your bladder to outside, okay? So these two similar looking words, their purpose is just for transportation, okay? So ureter transports your urine from your kidneys to bladder, and then urethra does the same, but with bladder, from bladder to outside, okay? And then your bladder is where all your urine is stored, okay? It's your storage. And kidneys is the factory, you can say. It's where it's produced, over here. Okay, so here it's produced from here, and then it's transported into the storage room, and then from the storage room it goes outside when it's needed. Okay, now next, another kidney diagram we have over here. So you don't need to know all of these labelings, you only need to know the ones that I'm going to highlight, which is the cortex, your medulla, and your ureter, obviously. Okay, so if you want to know more about the other labelings over here, these ones, then you can go ahead and learn about it, but they're not important for now. So looking into cortex, the cortex is the outer layer. Medulla over here is going to be considered as inside, and the cortex is going to be labeled as outside. So the cortex has an O, which basically indicates outside. So that's how you can remember this. Okay, cortex is going to be the outside layer, and medulla is going to be the inside layer. And ureter is the same as the previous diagram. Okay. Now, one more thing to know is that over here you have your medulla, okay? Now, this over here is your cortex, this is your medulla. Now, in between of these two things, okay, there is something called a nephron, which plays a really big role in production of urine, okay? Now, let's look into the diagram of nephron over here. Now, unfortunately for nephron, you have to memorize all the labelings that is given over here, okay? So we have your glomerulus, your Bowman's capsule, loop of Henle, collecting duct, distal convoluted tubule, and proximal convoluted tubule, okay? So you need to know all of this. Now looking into glomerulus, you can think of glomerulus as a filter, okay? You can think of it as a filter. to make it easier to understand. It's like a filter. And one more thing to remember of glomerulus is that it has very high pressure. Okay, and I will tell you the reason of it, why, later. And then over here you have your Bowman's capsule and all of these things. So let's look into how is urine produced. So the first process of the production of urine is ultrafiltration. So glomerulus over here, glomerulus forces out smaller molecules from the blood into the Bowman's capsule. So let's look into this diagram, okay? And let's imagine that this over here is your bloodstream, and over here you have your small molecules. It could be water, it could be ions, it could be glucose, it can be anything, okay? So your glomerulus has a really high pressure, so it acts like a vacuum. It vacuums out the smaller molecules inside your glomerulus and into the Bowman's capsule, okay? So that's what ultrafiltration is. It's like your blood is getting filtered out and the smaller parts are getting absorbed into your glomerulus, okay? Now the substances forced out, okay, as I've given the example before, but over here it's written, substance forced out is water, glucose, urea, and ions, okay? All of these will gather up in your Bowman's capsule. So this is the first process. The second process is selective reabsorption. Now after your blood is filtered and now it's in your Bowman's capsule, your blood, okay, your molecules will go through here and some of them will be reabsorbed back into the blood, okay, back into the blood. So now all of the glucose will be reabsorbed back into your bloodstream over here because your body needs glucose, okay? Glucose is a form of energy, so your body needs a lot of glucose. So the rest, all of the glucose which is absorbed by the glomerulus is now sent back into the blood because it is needed by the body, okay? And then some of the ions are also sent back into the bloodstream because they're needed, and a lot of water, most of the water, is also sent back into the blood because our body is mostly made out of water, so it's a very crucial component. So basically the things which our body needs the most, they are sent back into the blood, okay? Which is why this is called a selective reabsorption. So it is selectively sent back into the blood stream based on what our body needs, okay? And one thing to remember is that no urea is reabsorbed. Why? Because urea is really toxic. So our body does not need urea at all. So it has to stay in the Bowman's capsule, okay? Now what's left behind is basically urea, excess water, and ions, okay? We don't have glucose anymore because our body took all of the glucose back, okay? So now we have excess water, excess ions, and urea. Now this is all gonna form urine, and this is now ready to be excreted out, okay? So this is what the purpose of nephron is. Now we have the last organ to look into, which is the liver, okay? So liver, okay, the purpose of liver in this case is for deamination. And deamination is basically, over here I have written, is the removal of nitrogen containing part of amino acids to form urea. So liver, okay, the reason why it has to go through deamination is because now let's say we intake a lot of proteins and now the proteins are broken down into amino acids. Now when our body don't need a lot of amino acids, like it has used the amount it needs, now you have excess amino acids, what it's going to do is now it's going to break down the amino acids in a process called deamination, okay? So that amino acids can be excreted out, okay? Because amino acids, they can't be stored, okay? Just like that, all right? They can't be stored, so they have to be broken down in a process called deamination. Now what deamination does is that it removes nitrogen containing part of the amino acids to form urea, as I mentioned earlier, because amino acids, the main component of protein is component of protein is nitrogen. So if you remove nitrogen, it is no longer amino acids. In fact, it turns into urea, which is now something toxic and it can't be stored, and so it is just going to be released in your through your urine. Okay, so the process, okay, for the liver in this chapter is that it just turns amino acids into urea. Okay, and one thing to remember always is that urea is obviously it's formed in the liver. Okay, because that's where amino acids are broken down. Hopefully all of this was clear. If there's any questions, you can ask me in the comment section, and if you need me to go through any other chapters, please let me know. And to support my channel, please like my videos and also subscribe for new videos. So yeah, that's all. Thank you. Goodbye.